on to this public hearing on the investigation into the operations of real estate developers in the FCT. The Federal Capital Territory has witnessed unprecedented growth in the real estate development through various government and private investors, transforming it into more than a trillion naira sector. This growth should come with professionalism, accountability, and transparency. However, series of complaints and petitions from purchasers have highlighted multifaceted challenges such as fraud, misrepresentation from marketing to completion phases, vitiating of contract terms, failure to deliver homes to purchasers who have paid in full after many years, abandoning projects and starting off new ones in other locations, diversion of funds, unfairness and imbalance in the rights and obligations of home buyers and developers in the sale agreement, failure to inform purchasers about alteration or addition to the sold plans, failure to gain consent of purchasers on alterations or additions to the sold plans, money laundering as exposed by the EFCC, delays in conveying title documents, non-provision of primary and secondary infrastructure, etc. In a bid to address these problems, the Right Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, and the entire leadership of the House, at its plenary on the 29th of June, 2021, set up this Adhoc Committee with the following mandates. 1, to investigate complaints of misconduct of the real estate developers and create a forum for members of the public to lodge complaints against such fraudulent developers. 2, fully investigate the real estate developers suspected of violating applicable laws and liaise with enforcement agencies with a view to prosecution. 3, work with relevant stakeholders and ministries, departments and agencies of government towards formulating laws, issuing guidelines or other appropriate legislation and regulations for more than a trillion naira sector. 4, liaise with relevant NDAs to revisit the issue of compiling a database on property transactions and newly approved developments, while also ensuring that real estate developers are duly licensed before engaging in the practice. 5, liaise with relevant NDAs like Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, National Housing Fund, Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission, ICPC, towards plugging financial crimes in the sector. This committee has reached out to law enforcement agencies who, in the true spirit of cooperation, have expressed their readiness to support the committee in achieving its mandate. And today, we have the chairman of the ICPC here in person and the chairman of the EFCC here, ably represented by the director, one of his directors. We have also enjoyed the selfless cooperation of the FCT minister. We are still expecting him. His PAMSEC is here, and his team, the civil society organizations, here with us as well. And we are looking forward to partnering with other relevant agencies. The committee shall be inviting real estate developers and other stakeholders in the sector to give us in-depth accounts of their activities and, where necessary, go on oversight visits. We will work with relevant stakeholders to strengthen and introduce regulation through legislation to advance global best practice with the aim to protect home buyers' interests and boost the sector's appeal to investors. Finally, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to all stakeholders and address all petitions received and ensure that this, finally, I said, Right Honorable Speaker, and the entire House here, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to all stakeholders and encourage more submissions. We will, as a committee, address all petitions received and ensure that this thriving sector generates revenue for the FCT. I pray for God's guidance and wisdom as we commence deliberations. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Invited guests.
Thank you, sir.
Distinguished guests, stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, maiden meeting to formally inaugurate the Ad Hoc Committee, even as you commence this very crucial task, which has been assigned to you. As you are all aware, one of our primary tasks and constitutional responsibilities as elected representatives of the people and of our various constituencies is to, among other things, ensure the welfare and prosperity of our people. Access to decent and affordable housing is one of the primary indicators of such economic empowerment and social well-being. With the current housing deficit in Nigeria, which is estimated to be between 17 and 20 million housing units, and also said to be increasing annually by about 900,000 units, the potential cost of overcoming this deficit is also put at about 6 trillion naira. This highlights the huge opportunity that exists in the real estate sector. However, there are gaps in the relevant legislation that empowers some real estate developers while they capitalize on this opportunity to also operate with impunity, sometimes subverting the dreams and billions of naira of hard-working Nigerians. Lack of accountability and regulation in the dealings between these real estate developers and home buyers have caused a lot of hardships to many already struggling Nigerians who desire to own their own houses. It is therefore our responsibility to introduce an effective regulation to resolve these issues all over. I am at this point very happy to commend the efforts of the ICPC and the EFCC and all other relevant government agencies in sanitizing this very important sector. Hardworking Nigerians should not lose their money to fraudulent developers with no consequences. Nigerians are crying out over these sharp practices, and we cannot turn our deep ear to their cries. That is why I was very happy when Honorable Boma from Rivers State brought the motion on the floor on the need to investigate the operations of real estate developers in the Federal Capital Territory. The resolutions of this committee will hopefully ameliorate and bring some lasting solutions to the lack of transparency, professionalism, and accountability in the real estate sector, while introducing legislation to protect home buyers from unfair contracts and other dealings and other sharp practices highlighted in this subsector. As I formally inaugurate the Ad Hoc Committee to investigate the operations of real estate developers in FCT, I would like to assure you of the support of my office, in this case the Speaker's office, and the leadership of the House of Representatives. I wish you successful deliberations and God blessings as you continue this very good job in the discharge of your respective responsibilities. God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bless you and bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
The border on forgery, the cloning of land documents, double or multiple land allocations, allocation of land without the minister's approval, revocation of land title without due process, non-delivery of projects, embezzlement of sourced capital, land racketeering, the use of land syndicates and speculators, the marketing of fake layouts, fraudulent allocation of land, inordinate delay in processing of land documents for those who subscribe to their projects, general abuse of office, bribery, dishonesty, fraud, payment scams, or the refusal of government itself to pay fair value for acquired land, and the concomitant refusal of settlers and traditional owners to give access to legitimate land allottees, and other related issues and challenges. Aside from the petitions received by the Commission, there are other noticeable problems of real estate development in Abuja, in particular in Nigeria as a whole. This includes generally the high cost of home acquisition, the unstable capital market, environmental, social, and governance factors, currency volatility, increased rural to urban migration, ineffective property protection laws, perceived multiple tax and poor building quality, etc. While some of these challenges may be tackled by legislative and executive laws and policies, others are strictly based on the interplay of economic forces. I'm not unaware, of course, by some stakeholders for laws to compel house owners to collect monthly rent rather than sometimes annual or two-year rent. Now, while this will be in line with the economic realities of potential tenants, because nobody gets their salary 1 year in advance, people get their salaries monthly. Nevertheless, past experience shows that such laws are not enforceable, as they can easily be undermined by the parties as demand for housing outstrips supply. Therefore, government should focus on introducing policies to encourage massive home production, infrastructure and incentives, and effective law enforcement to positively impact home production through public and private partnerships. I can tell you that Lagos State has such a law, and it is not working anyway. Everybody just pretends about it. In addressing some of the issues raised in the petitions that are forwarded to ICPC, we have at different times had successfully investigated and prosecuted some errant public officers and their collaborators, including staff of the Federal Capital Development Authority, staff of civil defense, persons who abuse public trust, fraudulent real estate development operatives, and other ancillary people. And we have further deepened the mass housing gap in the FCT. Our investigations have led to recovery of assets and funds which are either considered to have been diverted, that were retrieved in the public interest. In some situations, we've simply ensured that the projects that were contemplated were delivered to the beneficiaries who had paid for them as vehicles for hiding ill-gotten wealth and money laundering. Public officers acquire estates in pseudonames to conceal illegal origin of funds. This is made possible by the absence of proper documentation, the registration of titles to land and estates in the country, and the non-enforcement of beneficial ownership standards. How to lift the veil and say who is behind this company, what's their track record, because some are serial fraudsters and they are unrepentant and they mutate like COVID-19. So you defeat them in one project, they mutate and create another scheme because they have insiders who are facilitating their nefarious activities. We think that a more focused and more rigorous due diligence on the part of the FCDA will reduce the opportunities for charlatans to get into the sector.
Mass housing is to provide affordable housing to the teeming population, to reduce the housing deficit. And in so doing, there are stakeholders within the entire value chain. The government, of course, that provides the land, and then the investors from the private sector that develop the lands. But more importantly, all this collaborative effort is quite frankly aimed at the off-takers. These are the families, men and women, that are going to be ultimate beneficiaries of these estates. And once you talk of housing, basically you're talking of something that is a right for everybody. And once you are in your house, you are supposed to be king in that house. I mean the family, because that is your sanctuary. That is your place where, after all the hassles of the day, you go back to. This is the basic principle, and I think it's a very important principle and concept of collaboration between the government and the private sector. Along the line, just like with many other good intentions, along the line, I think challenges have occurred during the process of the implementation, some of which I will be able to just raise briefly. But I do hope the public hearing today will be able to look at all these issues across the entire value chain, including all the issues raised by the chairman of ICPC, so that at the end of the day, the committee will guide us through its robust conclusion of the discussions here, so that I think ultimately the whole objective is a way forward.
Supervising, players within the designated non-financial institutions, which the real estate players fall within the bracket. From our records, we have registered as of today over 1,000 real estate firms in FCT. Yes, from our records. And we've been having this partnership with REDAN as well. So we have consistently visited, by way of inspection, what these real estate firms are doing. And we have come to understand that most of these real estate firms do not comply with the basic standard as enunciated under the Money Laundering Prohibition Act 2011 as amended, which includes ensuring that you identify and verify your customers before you do business. So it makes open the possibility of that sector being used for money laundering purposes. So in the course of inspections, when we go out to see these real estate firms, we discover that most of them have insufficient knowledge of what is required of law, which is know your customer. There is no proper identification, there is no proper profiling of who a prospective home buyer is. So we have incidences of third parties, buy on behalf of some other persons. So people are disguising themselves to be the buyers, whether they are buying in respect of some other people. We have equally seen very clearly from our inspection reports that some payments are made through BDCs. There is no record to show that buyer A is the one making payment for property A. So intermediaries are consistently being used, particularly the BDCs, to make payments. And this takes away traceability. And it makes the issue of verification, a bit difficult. Again, from the point of SCOMOL, we have escalated a couple of cases to EFCC Operations Department for formal detailed investigation and prosecution.
To the Real Estate Regulations and Development Bill 2020, to the two chambers of the National Assembly, copy which was forwarded to the Honorable Speaker, House of Representatives in July 16, 2021. This is the second bill we are presenting in our quest to get the real estate regulated, because we have no any other business but this. The bill is aimed at protecting the right of the home seekers, home buyers, developers, and other professionals involved in the housing development, and to promote transparency, the sector leading to the boost of investment in the real estate and housing development in the country. Pursuant to our mandate to right the sector of the Fraudulent Act, REDAN initiated the endorsement of estate and product as a mark of credence and informed the public to patronize estates that have been endorsed. Those such estates have requisite titles and the process and all the approvals to transfer documents to home buyers seamlessly. REDAN introduced membership seal as well as estate endorsement seal, which are to be affixed to members' document as a mark of authentication and credibility. It's in collaboration and synergy with the financial regulatory agencies and other organizations to ensure compliance with the extant laws and guidelines for holistic compliance with issues to make the best practice in the real estate business.
The fact that these things are happening, but that those people who are practicing them are not registered members of your association, even though they are your professional colleagues.
Yes, and we have asked the general public, anybody who has any complaint, he shall direct him to the REDAN office, and we will make sure that we have treated his complaint with modesty. No one of our members will make this kind of sharp practice. These people are not our members. Some of them are even, they are not our members. Some of them are even still in government, working in government, and they are the ones who are doing all this money and the rest of it. So they are only coming to stand our association. And we believe with you around, you will make a law that will propagate and will regulate the estate operations in Nigeria. That will be better off. Thank you, sir.
And us from both organizations, and then we look thoroughly into the activities as well as whether they are membership of any association or not, and particularly whether they are registered practitioners. That would be very important. And for ICPC and EFCC, we want you to cooperate with the committee in respect of getting details about people who are involved in these sharp practices. Thank you.
The question is to the chairman of REDAN. We are all aware of the current scheme going on in the FCT. Many times you see many real estate companies coming out with a lot of programs. They come out with a lot of programs like they are selling either a house or a land, and they will give you a payment plan for you to pay a certain amount of money. And they will tell you the completion time is 18 months. But most of the times you find out that when you commit your money, maybe you pay part of the money you're asked to pay. And most times you find out that they don't even complete that project at the time that they stipulated in the program that they're going to complete it. So I'm struggling here to find out how you regulate most of these people. What they usually do, once you make a commitment, they gather the money from all other gullible citizens who fall for this scheme. And they move to the next, they won't commence that particular project. They will use that same money collected from the public and move to the next project. So most of the times you find them going to the EFCC for complaint. So how are you checkmating this scheme? I call it a scam. So how do you checkmate this particular scheme in your industry?
Sent to FCDA with some requests, and I briefly go through them. There are about 6. The first was a comprehensive list of all mass housing developers and their promoters. Second one, brief detail on mass housing program launched in the FCT in the last 10 years. The third was brief report on the modus operandi of mass housing in the FCT. Fourth was list of approvals necessary for mass housing developers. Fifth, detailed report of the process mechanisms of collecting and handling complaints. We had addressed this issue by sending copies of a memorandum, and we also brought the copies along with us. On the first one, we saw the list with us. We have a total of 285 persons or members or companies with the telephone numbers of their promoters. We also have their addresses as given. The second one was the brief report on the mass housing program launched in the last 10 years, whether already completed or being developed, and status, including any delays in completion. we tabulated everything, and it showed that we have a total of 181. There are some subheads there, location of their location, plot number, size of plot, whether or not they complied with certain things that are statutorily required, and all. They are here. They are all comprehensively enumerated here. The third question was, was brief report on the modus operandi of mass housing developers in the FCT. We stated it, and they are there. I believe since it's here, there's no need I go through them in details. We all know those FCDA. To the best of my knowledge and the records that we have, and the procedure is anybody who applies under the guideline for allocation of estate for mass housing, estate land, mass housing land. He makes the application, recommendations are made to the minister. After due process, he's issued, he comes back, all the internal procedures are taken, he gets introduced to the site, and then he starts development. These are the ones that came and were captured by the Department of Mass Housing, FCDA. Certain people may have gotten allocation which have not come through Federal Capital Development or the Department of Mass Housing. We have gone to the site to carry out inspection, and as much as possible, whenever we have information, we capture it in our database. That's the thing.
This statutory that they must pass through that initial process you mentioned before the land is being allocated to them?
The guideline stipulates that.
Guideline for which people?
For mass housing allocation, the FCT.
Authored by who?
Pardon?
Authored by who?
Federal Executive Council approved it.